Well, hello everyone. Your eyes do not see view. I am not Gary. Gary is somewhere sipping on limeade, I think he said. Um, but it's so great to be back. It's like riding a bike. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Carlos Cano. I'm back for tonight. Special guest host, if you will, for the podcast. So super excited to be here with y'all this evening. I wish it would be under some better circumstances from over the weekend, but we'll get into that in just a little bit. Welcome to episode 153 of New York Red Bulls Discussion Group, the podcast. We'll have our match recap. My co-hosts tonight, Nick and Mark, will join me shortly, and we'll get right into it. Yeah, we'll talk about the Cash Grab Cup and all that fun stuff too. That's coming up. As if we didn't need another debacle to talk about. I'm sure Mark can fill us in even more so, and Nick as well. All of us. I know I was in the in our group thread as Red Bull 2 was getting demolished, so we can talk about that. We'll get some other updates on Gotham and anything else happening in the Red Bull world. Of course, we're on YouTube, we're on X, we're on Spotify. Gary always with the Spotify.com. Spotify.com's not a thing. It's just Spotify. But you'll find us there tomorrow as well. So if you're not able to consume us live, you can do so on any of our other platforms, usually right immediately the following day. Questions, comments, issues, concerns. If you want me back as a host, send an email, rbdgthepodcast@gmail.com. And, if you have any other complaints, you can send those to Gary. But anything else, all the love for the rest of us, you can send our way. So we come off of another weekend of disappointment, of blahness, of I don't know, whatever you may want to call it. It's been an up and down roller coaster. I've watched every single game, of course. At home with my family. I still don't miss a game, even though I haven't been to the arena in quite some time at this point. But I watch every game, and I mean, look, we'll get into it with the guys in just a bit. But I'll say from my perspective that it's not a feeling we're not used to. I think after the I guess, for lack of a better term, the fairy tale from last year, right? Making the playoffs, making the run, winning the Eastern Conference, and then getting to MLS Cup, right? I think we all anticipated that this season would somehow be different. And it started off maybe sort of hinting that it would be, and now really not so much. And at least for me, and curious to see what Nick and Mark think, but I, feel like it's same old Red Bulls, which you can argue it's like same old Red Bulls is not what you want, right? I don't think it's what anyone wants, but here we are, right? And I know that this, we have this conversation. We've had this conversation. I have it in again in our thread with the podcast hosts. We have it in the discussion group. Right, but all you really have to do is make the playoffs. I know we're just outside. We're on the outside looking in after this weekend, but that's, we're still in that same game, right? We still just have to make the playoffs, and then we'll see what happens after that. But naturally, I think the question, especially after a performance like the one we saw this weekend, the performance we saw against Miami, for example, you would think, well, if we keep playing like that, I don't know that we're going to make the playoffs, right? So I think that's where we ultimately are. So with that in mind, I'm going to bring Nick and Mark into the group here, gentlemen. Another another weekend, right? Wasn't wasn't the best soccer that we've seen, especially from this group. But Nick, I'll open it to you. What did you get out of this weekend? Where do you think we are?
We're stuck on tired legs and look flat and dead. I don't know what else can you else describe it as. There's no creativity. We look like we're back to the Struber age. That's what I look at it as, because I don't know. They had no idea what to do in the final third, and we have two guys, one guy that can score, and one guy that can create, and we have no idea what we're doing. None. They all look like they never kicked the ball around before in their life. And if it wasn't for Carlos Coronel, this game would have been 3 or 4 to nothing.
I mean, it's hard to really disagree with that, right? Cornell definitely, stood on his head and kept that game close, for sure. I mean, it could have easily been 2-3 nothing at the end of it. Mark, from where you sat watching this one, what's your take?
I mean, I think it. I don't know if I'd say we're back to the Struber age, but probably not that far from it. You hit on something in the intro. We expected more. I mean, we got to the cup final. We added a couple pieces. We really thought that this team was going to be top 4 at the start of the season. I don't see why we wouldn't have been. But yeah, I mean, it's just all around. There's just been such regression with the play on this team, and the injuries, they've taken a toll too. We saw Dylan out for a while, so then you're sort of put in a position where you have to have Duncan out on the field. Obviously I have Cam's jerseys behind my shoulder here. He goes down. I mean, maybe these guys aren't like the greatest players. They aren't they aren't in the conversation for guys getting transferred to Europe, but they're solid players for this team. And you see these guys go down. You see these guys not getting the job done. And it's one thing to start blaming injuries. It's another when you have guys who just aren't getting it done. I mean, I love watching Mohamed Safa at Red Bull too. He's done well coming up, but you're asking him to play as a wingback. And then 2 goals were on him against Miami. So you say, all right, well, guys are being asked to play out of position. All right, but they're still young enough that they should be able to adapt. And these guys, they're just not getting it done. And it's just not 1 or 2 players. It's everybody on this team, with the exception of Carnell. If it wasn't for him, literally this would have been a 4-0, 5-0 blowout. So I just don't. And you can, the other thing too, on the other side of it, as far as the coaching, you can see Sandro's frustration growing every press conference. He's just there. He's trying to make changes. He's trying to move people around. He's trying to get. Nothing is working right now. So I don't know. I don't know where we go from here. And it's a scary moment because we're going into the cash grab. You have to play the 3 games. We're not the only teams obviously playing, but there are a few that aren't playing. So their guys are going to rest while our guys are playing. So where do we go from here is sort of the question. There's not much left.
Yeah, that's you definitely brought up some points there, Mark, particularly with regards to the injuries. Let's talk a little bit more about that on the other side of the match recap. So again, match recap. For those of you who watched, I apologize. For those of you who maybe didn't, I apologize too, because really not anything super exciting. But here we go.
At Soldier Field, away we go. 9th versus 10th as we welcome you to the very edge of the Eastern playoff picture. 2 sides on the cusp of the conversation, but hanging on amongst major uncertainty.
I've been appreciative of Rahel in the minutes that he's had with Chicago Fire this season, that he's been given but also earned, and just watching his head on the swivel nonstop.
Here's Bamba in behind. Jonathan Bamba, cross goal. Very good save by Coronel and scrambled away. This is Netcam replay brought to you by T-Mobile. Coronel doing ever so well.
Well, this is why he's got the save stats that he does. He puts himself in the perfect position, giving Red Bull New York that opportunity, but when they don't have the ball, it's hard to find it.
Well, they don't have the ball now, but Zinkenagel does and fires. It's a very good save again from Coronel. Gutierrez tees it up here for Jonathan Bamba. Another save, this time at the near post by Coronel.
And he goes with the Meg here. I mean, clever little 1-2 combination play. It almost looks like it's going to be a turnover from Gutierrez, but Bamba opens up his hips and finds it, goes for the Meg.
Down the line he goes. Elliott's on hand again. Towards the edge, Gutierrez! Well, the chances keep coming for Chicago Fire.
Red Bull doesn't step quick enough there. It keeps everybody in an onside position. You think Zinkernagel's going to be off, but they stay dropped. Ayla stays dropped just a step, as well as Hack. And Zinkernagel hadn't retreated back into his position yet. Gutierrez gets a really nice strike off, but doesn't force Cornell into a save.
Forsberg looking to latch onto the pass. Here's Choupo-Moting. Sofo ahead. Choupo-Moting lets fly. And a rather routine save for Chris Brady in goal. With a delightful ball over to the far side. Duncan's ball across goal. Taken and cleared to one side for the time being, only as far as Donko. Donko! Off the woodwork! And away by Tehran.
And Chicago Fire, he seizes his moment. Just goes straight off the post. Chris Brady had nothing to say about that one. If you don't keep the ball long enough, you don't have time to find the space to get it.
Now here's Kuipers in behind. Engel got tighter and tighter. It was a half-hearted appeal for handball. Regardless, they'll get themselves a corner. Very, very quick in transition, Chicago Fire.
Into this match with Greg Berhalter as Kuipers just understanding that if he continues to make the runs and find the space, trusting that his teammates will find him.
With a chance to review, this is why the monitor and the system is in place for moments like this. It seems as though the hand may be operating in an unnatural position.
Well, that's the tricky part, isn't it, though? Because when you're falling, it's hard to where else you put your arms.
So the decision is...
Number 42 for New York. It's a handball in the penalty area. Final decision, penalty.
This is why Hugo Kuipers was brought here, for big moments like this, to deliver in moments like this. It's Hugo Kuipers who scores!
To put this one away and get Chicago on the board, no doubt about. That was the other thing Greg Berhalter talked about after that Montreal win on the road, the clean sheet.
Into Whitlam and Carmona, straight into the grass with Chris Brady.
That'll be huge.
Well, they've missed him this year. In the meantime, attention at the other end of the field. Gutierrez, Zinkenagel! Very good save by Carlos Coronel.
I mean, Cornell to the near post once again, but look at this clever interplay and the unselfish nature of it. That 1-2 combination play, the run's coming off the ball. Gutierrez could have struck it himself there, but he goes for the heel pass to Zinkernagel, making that run. I mean, those three are really starting to become quite something. And that doesn't even...
Here comes Chicago again. Bamba. Kuipers. To the edge it goes. It's flashed through. Haile Selassie.
I think that was Kwame's chance, though. And again, great run, great unselfish nature. Kuiper finds it, but why isn't he shooting that himself? Why isn't he setting himself up with it?
Hugo Kuipers with the goal to separate the two sides. One more chance now for Red Bull New York. Chicago Fire clear their lines. And with that victory.
And so that's that, folks. 1-0 loss to the Fire on the road. The Kuipers penalty at the 44th minute from a handball that drew some controversy. That's certainly an awkward call, to make. I think all of us who follow the sport know that the handball rule, generally speaking, is open to plenty of interpretation, for lack of a better term. So, that kind of is what it is. I feel like it was, an unlucky type of a situation. Doncor probably has the best opportunity of the match that comes off the post. You could argue a couple millimeters the other direction, and that bounces the other way and potentially goes in. But I mean, I guess for me, if there's anything you can try to take some comfort in, is that yes, Cornell played on his head, out of his mind. He was fantastic, but it also wasn't like Chicago was that much better, but they were a goal better, because at the end of the day, they got the opportunity to get from the spot, and they did. And so, 1-0 loss before the break for the Cash Grab Cup. But before we looked at the recap, Mark brought up some of the issues obviously we've had with injuries, with Morgan going down, with Harper going down, among others. And I think that is part of what I think we expected, and part of what I think leads us to feeling like it's back to the same old Red Bulls, right? Because when you look at the starting 11, and it comes time, as we're all pretty much accustomed to at this point, you start to get into that, the time between the 60th and the 75th minute, probably closer to the 75th minute, where it's time to make some of those changes, and you kind of look around and you're like, who's next? Right? Because a lot of the guys that you would have figured would have been on the bench to come up for a Harper, for a Morgan, for anyone else, they're starting. And so now you're forcing folks like Forsberg, like Chupo, to play a full 90. And in the long term, how effective is that going to be, right? So I think, again, in sort of same old Red Bulls fashion, I start to look towards the front office, and what are we going to do? What where are the reinforcements? Where are the signings? Where are we've had some of the banter back and forth over the last couple of days, as Miami's bringing in Rodrigo de Paul, right? And you're kind of just again looking around like, okay, what are the Red Bulls going to do, right? Because we're hoping to make a run, but that's definitely some of the thoughts that I had. Mark, what any final sort of grabs so we can kind of put this one to bed? I think
on this, I think we've already said all there is to say about this. It was just it had to be one of the more painful games to watch. It just when you talk about injuries, I mean, and you're saying, who's stepping up. No, there's nobody off the bench. I mean, Nick and I were joking. Nick said it best. When Wiki's your number one guy off the bench, there's a problem. There's no depth left on this bench with the injuries. We'll get to Red Bull 2 later, but how many people during the course of the thread on Saturday were asking, "Where's Morales?" This guy's been with us for how long now? And he's yet to see a single minute. He hasn't been on the bench for a first team game as far as I can recall. It just you're waiting, and everyone, he's coming. Yeah, so's Christmas.
Yeah, when Sandro Gengar, who did have a stink of a performance besides that one pass to the Duncan, and Duncan didn't. Kyle, that ball was sitting there for you to just hit the ball. It was sitting there for you to just slam it onto the target. You didn't have to do anything. You didn't have to dribble. You didn't have to do anything. You just walk up into the shot and just take the shot. It was there for you. And I don't know what you were thinking in that first play. And then Gengar disappeared. And you saw him get yanked. I never seen it. It was like the second time we've seen coaches yank players. Struby did it to Harper. Struby did it to who was the other guy? He did it to two people. I didn't think he did it to Carmona as well. He yanked it right off the field like 20 minutes in. And Caceres Jr. got yanked too. Those are those three guys that got yanked right off the field. They didn't like anything. He got yanked right off the field. He did it to Vanguard. Hopefully, spark this team. I don't know if the thing is Wiki just performed horribly to give that spark, especially on the left side where he's not performing at all. But he's better on the right side. So that's another issue I have with him. But at this point, you went to Wiki. You couldn't go to the server going to always a big back time like Wiki. Then you have a 17-year-old that you're expecting to do something, and then playing him as a central midfielder. I'm confused on that one too. He did great against New England, but New England was, I think, after Forsberg scored that goal to give them the lead, they just fell apart at that point. It didn't matter. So it was just open season against them, and New England has fallen apart since. So I don't know. I don't know where they turn to for a spark, but they definitely need it. And it can't be Trupo, because Trupo's actually performed well. Who else is going to give you that spark? Sofa gave it to you for a little bit. Now I think he might be better suited coming off the bench. Who are you going to replace him with? And we go back to the same thing as you said and Mark said. Front office, hello. Can we get bodies? And ballers, not just ball holders. That's what.
Or ball watchers.
Or ball watchers. My God, no and Duncan in that game. There was like what? I mean, every highlight you saw, Noah and Duncan just get. Okay, that was my guy. No. What's going on here, guys? Both of you guys, wake up.
Well, I think that's the ultimate problem. That's I think why, like I said, Sandro's pulling his hair out with little he's got left, because they're just nobody's playing like they played at the beginning of the season. The whole collective is just not getting it done. I mean, the New England game was like, we go down, we come back, we take the lead, we win the game, but it's against New England. Chicago has one of the most porous defenses. They've allowed almost, I think, more goals than anybody else in MLS this season. They have also scored a lot. We hold them to one goal because of Cornell. We didn't score because we were just that bad. It wasn't because their defense was great. We just weren't getting it done.
Yeah, the minute they got the lead in the second half, when they realized, kudos to Berhalter, who realized this team can't beat us on the wings, and they just shut it down. We turned to Rafael Mascaro off RB2 for the one game call up, hopefully give us something, and then we're playing him all the way out in left field. I don't know what he's going to do over there, and he's not basically his position. Where he was next to, where was he playing next to at that point at the end of the game? He was playing next to Dylan. He's not going to do anything over there. He needs to be in the middle of the field, and it was just nothing. Every move we made resulted in going nowhere. It was the exact opposite of the New England game, where every move he made was working.
Yeah, this was just not good.
Yeah, it's the inconsistency is it's rearing its ugly head again, right? Because the Revs game is everything that I think you want in your team, right? They go down early, they make an amazing comeback, which is one of those things that for as long as I can remember, let's say since the days of Henri and that era, right? BWP and so on, right? When we sort of left that era, we missed that. We missed having those opportunities to come back in games where we would fall early, right? And we saw that. We saw that last season. We saw that, again and against the Revs. And so again, this sort of up and down inconsistency is ultimately what gets you. The other thing that I think we're seeing is this year's Red Bulls team is a team that does not do well on the road. And so you can almost bank that when we do hit the road that we're not going to get a result. I think for the most part, you can hope for that we'll get a tie when we're out on the road. I mean, the Red Bulls are 1-8-4 away from Red Bull Arena, because I will never call it the other name. They're not good.
We just call it the Illustrated.
I won't even call it that.
That's Miguel's personal.
I just stay with the Cathedral. It's easier.
I have
Yeah,
to
the Cathedral, Red Bull Arena, forever and always in my heart. But but again, like we have to, and we were discussing this before we went live, that the rest of the way, the majority of the Red Bulls' remaining games on the schedule are at home. So it makes those games that much more important, right? When you talk about, that's why early in the season, I'm always hesitant to talk about must wins, right? We have those conversations every now and again, particularly when the team is not doing super well. But now when we come out on the other end of, of the Leagues Cup and all of that, and we start to wrap up the regular season for MLS, those home games truly do become must win, right? Because again, your record on the road doesn't indicate that you're going to get results when you're out on the road. So it makes those home games that much more important, but it also means that there's that much more pressure on this team to win at home. So that all said, I think this is a good time to take a bit of a break. Let's take a look at the scores from the weekend in MLS from match day 27. And then we'll start to look ahead a little bit at what's coming up next in MLS for the Red Bulls, the Leagues Cup. We'll talk a little bit about Red Bull 2 as well, and more to come on the other side. So you saw it there, folks. The next league game is August 10th against Real Salt Lake. A reminder to our listening faithful that during Leagues Cup, we won't have the podcast live, so we'll take a little bit of a pause and then be back after the game at Real Salt Lake. So just keep that in mind. If you have us penciled in onto your schedule, you can erase that on Mondays for the next couple of weeks with the Leagues Cup. So again, the next matchup for the Red Bulls will be August 10th, Real Salt Lake. Here's some insight as to the all-time series between RSL and the Red Bulls. And obviously, Real Salt Lake doesn't play at Soldier Field in Chicago. Blame Gary because he didn't update the graphic. That's not my fault.
Yeah, that's the Diego Luna.
Even on vacation, I give him grief, but he's more than earned his vacation. So I'll give him that. We'll let this one slide. But
I had to laugh earlier. He commented, he's like, "I'm on vacation and I get a hashtag blame Gary."
He sure does. No, he's never immune from it, especially when some of the graphics don't get updated. But we're all human beings. It's okay.
That's it. Yeah. So here's like just before we get on to the cash grab, because honestly, I think it's an absolute waste of time and money, but that's what the league sees. Just because we were talking about it, I'm just going to run down our remaining schedule real quick and we can talk about it. RSL, we're at home. RSL is currently in 8th place. We have the Open Cup game away at Philly, then home for Philly. They're in 1st. Away for Charlotte, we mentioned, 1st of the 2 on turf. They're in 7th. Home for Columbus. They're 4th place currently. Away for Portland, another turf game. They're 5th place. Home for City, they're in 8th. Home for Cincinnati, they're currently in 2nd. And then guess what? We get to play Columbus on decision day. Away.
You missed the fun trip to Montreal, which is always torture.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I forgot. That's the Montreal. I was sitting there. Yeah, well, you know what? That's just an automatic. Like, we're not coming home with points, so that's probably why I mentally skipped over it.
Yeah, I've been there.
Yeah, we never come home with points from Montreal. So
The curse of the turf.
I think I've been 6 or 7 times. I've seen 2 goals.
Yeah,
and they were last year.
Yeah, and wasn't it Julian?
Julian scored a tiny one. Scoring his first professional goal. Yeah.
So
I'm telling you, I think I've seen as many knees being blown out. I think Duncan blew out his knee, and I think Ross blew out his knee up there.
Yeah,
I was like, oh God.
Look, this is not an easy road. And then, like I said, you throw in the Open Cup. We have 3 games during the cash grab. This is just. Again, I'm going to give Miguel his props. We jokingly call it American relegation if you don't make the playoffs. All right. After 15 years, I honestly think, realistically, we don't make the playoffs this year.
No.
I mean, and we're not even in August, and I'm saying this, but I just don't see that this team is going to turn around and start playing like the team we thought they'd be, and start just cooking off wins. Especially with four road games.
Yeah, I mean the only thing that I guess and I guess we can in some ways transition to talk about Leagues Cup for a little bit too. But I mean, I guess what I'm hoping for is that we always talk about during Leagues Cup, and again, I'm sure some of the starters will see the field and whatnot, but we know that this is always sort of a showcase and a spotlight for the kids to play, right? So for some of the guys from RB2 to come up and see what's in store. And I mean, I hope that we can find some lightning in a bottle from one of these guys who, are like, what, let me maximize this opportunity that I have to play with the first team, even if it's during the Leagues Cup match, which again, we know doesn't amount to, again, I know people talk about, that winning Leagues Cup gets you into Champions League and whatnot. So I don't want to diminish it too much either, but again, I think the whole premise in the middle of the season of the Leagues Cup, just doesn't make a lot of sense. But being that we have to play it, right? I can only hope that a couple of these kids stake a claim and say, hey, I'm here. Give me a call, so that. Not only do we have, again, the rest of the regular season to worry about in terms of making the playoffs, but we still have that Open Cup match, which, again, the rain, the weather and all that fun stuff did away with that match when we were supposed to have it. Now it gets pushed back. It makes you wonder, right, if playing it when we should have would have been better. Is now the form that this team is in, or is, I don't know. It's just there's a lot happening, and I can only hope that Leagues Cup.
Yeah, and the way they schedule these League Cup games is even more ridiculous. We're playing 3 games in 8 days, and we're traveling to Cincinnati to play a doubleheader with Cincinnati and us when we play Monterey in Cincinnati. And then we come back home to play Thursday against Juarez. I have no idea who was on that team. But Monterey is a lethal team. That's a team that we should just, hey guys, kids, come right out, play these guys, get your beating like a man, and move on. Sorry guys, I'm sorry you guys are going to take this one, but you guys are. Look who's on the team. We have Sergio Ramos is on that team. Jesus Moreno, Canales, Ocampo, and German Bernal Bartolome. He's got 5 goals already for them in 2 games. Yeah, guys. And they just came back from playing the World Cup. Sorry, I couldn't get that out of my mouth today. They got eliminated in the round of 16, and they had 1 win and 2 draws in the group stage. We're playing a team that's fit and looking to make an example, and wanting to come here and take the money. And our form we're playing against these guys. We're just our luck of the draw. We got Chivas, still the biggest name and one of the biggest names in Mexico, but they're not as great as they used to be, but still a big name. And these guys, yeah, I think our priority should be the Cup game and the MLS regular season, and more importantly, the Cup game actually, because we're in the quarterfinals for crying out loud.
Yeah, I mean, later this week when we see that starting 11, when we play Chivas, which is first up for us, I think that will ultimately be telling. I think that will ultimately set the tone for how this team wants to approach the Leagues Cup. Again, you can make arguments either which way. You have an opportunity to play to win a tournament that does again lead to a spot in Champions League, or do you sort of prioritize this closer to the bottom of that priority list, right? Knowing that you have an Open Cup match that's forthcoming, and then of course the rest of your regular season. I guess we'll find out on on the 31st, right? So what is that? Wednesday, Thursday. See what the mentality is going into Leagues Cup. Again, we can argue should we have Leagues Cup or not, and what that looks like. But at the end of the day, the tournament is there. These guys got to play it. So let's sort of see where we go. That being said, and as we talk about the kids, transition to again not so good news. Red Bull 2 in action over the weekend as well. That game 9-2, pretty crazy score line there. Definitely does not resemble a soccer score line that you commonly see. I just remember, as it was happening, seeing the pings on my phone from Mark and Nick who were watching the game, and it's like, oh, Chicago got another one, and there's another one, and there's another one, and 9 goals later, at least we got 2 for whatever that's worth. Both of them came from the spot. But guys, I admittedly did not watch that game, so I could not give you any kind of feedback other than the score. But gents, what any takeaways from that game and how that all went?
I think the hardest part, anytime, I don't care what team you are, you get a red card off, less than 30 minutes in, you're going at least 60 minutes down a man. And these guys, they had already, this was 14th minute, he was off. So this guy, whatever his name is, Shakaluk, he had 3 goals, 20th minute. And then he scored a 4th in the 63rd. It was atrocious. And it was tough to watch. Mitchell scored one from one was a penalty, and the one in the 48th was from a run of play. So you're down 5-1 at half. You get back to 5-2. You're really not thinking you're going to come back and score 3 more. But these teams score goals. They don't have a priority, and none of the 2 teams really seem to have solid defensive players. So it was tough. I think seeing Mitchell play 73 minutes was great, because I think he's one of the guys we're talking about for the cash grab. I want to see if he's going to come back. He scored 4 goals in a 2-game last year, and then blew his knee out. Before half. Yeah. In the first half, he scored 4 goals, and he came off before halftime with the ACL injury. I think it was ACL or MCL.
Oh.
But it's just. It's tough, because I thought last year he was going to be the guy coming up at the end of the season, and was going to be, everybody was going to be like, oh my God, this guy's great. This year it was Sofo, because Mitchell's out. The other one is Ibrahim Kasule, who didn't do a heck of a lot in this game, but he's been solid for them. Tanner Rossborough is another one. And they have some kids that I think we're going to see.
Fasula is the leading goal scorer in the team history.
Yeah. So there are guys there, but it's like that old question of do you make that transition? I mean, for those of us that are Yankee fans, we all remember Bubba Crosby. Everybody joked that Bubba Crosby was a quadruple A player. He was too good to play in Triple A, but he just wasn't good enough to play in the Major League. So we find out what these kids are worth, I think, the 3 games that we have set up coming up in the next 2 weeks. And maybe we find one that can make a difference on this team. But that was a train wreck of a game. I mean, I think that was probably worse than Saturday's game for me.
That scoreline was definitely worse.
Yeah, I mean, I love the second team. I love the kids. I love watching them. Whenever I get a chance to go out and see them, it's a lot of fun. You know, and they're all wanting the same thing. They want to win. They want to play hard and they want to win. And they're still technically in first place. The problem is they're tied on points right now with Philly 2, but Philly 2 has 2 games in hand. So, you know, they'll probably next week they'll probably drop out. But like I said, this has been a solid crew so far this season. I'm hoping a couple of these guys can make the transition up.
Yeah, they're playing. The next game is on Thursday at 6:00 in Columbus, or against Columbus Crew 2. So it's a good way for them to rebound. Listen, do you expect them to give up 9? No, I don't think Aiden gave up. A lot of them were on him because he was just basically. They stayed with when I forget who got a goal target. They stayed with 3. They just stayed with the 3 defenders. They didn't change.
No.
They just stayed with the 3. Bradley didn't change anything. He's like, all right, we're gonna play with 3. We're gonna see how this goes. And that was not a good idea.
Well, part of the problem is too, and this is we've sort of touched on this a couple of times over the course of this season. When they made the switch, and I can't even remember what the previous coach's name was. He was like the interim coach almost, in between Wally and Ibra, you know, taking over. He was a British fellow.
Yeah,
he was out. He was out less than half the season. So, but when Ibrahim took over, there was a huge focus on offense for this team because that was one of those problems. The first team wasn't scoring, and you have the second team really not finding their way. Well, between him and BWP, you suddenly see these guys being able to make passes. All these young kids that are doing it all now, and we're seeing, like I said, we've seen Sofo come up, Julian Halls come up. We're talking about Kasule, we're talking about Rossborough, Mitchell. So these are the guys that have skills, and they're also fast. That's the other thing that, and like everybody says, Sofo's fast, Mitchell's faster. That's the one thing I hope to God he's back up to full speed, and he can start showing what he's made of. I so love watching him play.
I saw Mitchell play against before he got hurt that cup game in St. John's University with RB2 versus NYCD2. And it was Sofo and Mitchell as your front 3 with Kasuli behind them.
Yeah.
We're talking about guys that could fly, running right by everybody. That was a great front line. No problem was our defense was just was like I think it was a 5-3 game in that cup game. Like that. Mitchell had 2, and I think Hall had another one at that point. And I think Serge was on that team as well.
Well, there's another, like Serge can't seem to stay healthy either when we talk about injuries. I mean, I think might have been Lisa or somebody else had said a couple weeks back when he was listed on the injury list again. They joked, did he injure himself getting on or off the bus down in Philly for the Open Cup game that got canceled? I mean, I just nobody understands, like, why is this guy just not able to stay healthy for more than like 2 or 3 weeks at a time? And that's a question that we're seeing with a lot of the guys on the team. It's not just 1 or 2. There's guys just over and over again. And even like for Morales was injured when we signed him, Why has he not recovered to the point where he can start playing? That was the whole point of signing this guy. It's almost 2 years later, and we still haven't seen him put on a jersey for the first team. So why did we spend this kind of money to bring somebody in and they're not playing? So,
Well, my friends, I mean, there's not a ton to really go on, beyond that, given just, where we are, right? We're in sort of this really gray space at this point in the season with, again, the Leagues Cup coming. We still have the Open Cup to worry about. And then, again, when you teeter totter between being in and out of the playoff bracket, and obviously we know that the playoff format now, those last two spots, ultimately lead into it's a play in, right? So you have to worry about that. It's not you make the playoffs, right? It's sort of the same deal in the NBA, right, where you make those last spots and you technically make the playoffs, but you still have to play your way into the rest of the playoff schedule. And we're kind of in the same boat here, right? And so when you, like I said, when you teeter totter in and out of the playoff picture, the question of not making the playoffs always becomes a real one, right? Until this team shows some consistency and shows consistency in the standings as well, so that it's not so much a question, right? But nonetheless, we have this stretch of games coming up again with Leagues Cup. They'll return to regular season action on August 10th. We'll see how Thursday rolls out in terms of the starting 11 and the team that's ultimately put out on the pitch for that first leagues game, and then we'll kind of see how things go from there. But gentlemen, any parting thoughts before we wrap this up for the evening?
The parting shot is we did sign a player. We forgot about that. We didn't. We did sign. We did get one player. We did bringing him. We're all bringing in a midfielder who should be here sooner than later. And Gustav Bregan. Is it pronounced Bregan?
I'm not even
We
sure.
did, and that's
He
again,
is
the play has
signed.
been so lackluster that sort of flew under the radar.
He is
That we
officially
did make a
signed.
signing.
He is officially signed. I think he was signed basically 3 weeks before we announced it, but we did sign him. He is, and it was announced, so that's a positive for this thing. As we've seen with most of the additions that we try to sign players, we sign him, he's not approved. We sign him. It's
Well, again, in true Red Bull form, right? We made the signing, and now it's time to play the game of how long does it take before they dress for the team and at least sit on the bench, right? Because there's always sort of this ramp up process that we see this team have when they sign players. It's never an immediate thing. So time will tell.
The 9-game cameo appearance that we're going to get from the guy, if he plays all of the 9 games left. And then the other news, of course, that everybody's been reading on Twitter and X and all the good stuff. The Timo Werner deal that we were expecting to happen, and everything was negotiated, is off completely. He decided to stay, and he's not coming. So we need to look elsewhere if we're going to bring in new somebody to help on the wing. So it's not Timo. We're going to take that jersey. Anybody has pre-printed that jersey, it's not coming. And then we need to move on.
It's sad. I didn't comment about the handball call because I don't want to. You mentioned it. There's parts. I watched the replay like 6 or 7 different times. You could have seen, I guess, what they called. I just that whole situation. When your arm is trailing behind you as you're doing a slide tackle, where are you supposed to put your arm? And that's the hard part for me. Even if he moved his arm a little bit one way or the other, the ball was going to go off his arm. It wasn't miraculously going to pop open to one of their players and go in the net. I found that was a really horrible call. And there were just multiple times during the course of the game, people on the thread were saying, how come that wasn't called? How come that wasn't called? Chapman just did a miserable job officiating that game. And the previous game against Miami, I think
he just handed mine. Even Messi at one point just turned around and laughed.
Yeah, and there was no replay by Apple, whether on the fourth goal, and it looked like he was well offside, but they didn't show us the replay from the side. They didn't want to give us any of that, and then I cannot for the life of me understand. Suarez ran over into Sandro's tactical area, shoves him, and then goes back on the field. No card, nothing said. No, like, just how much, and I'm going to use the nice term, how much butt kissing the league plan to give to Miami and all of their crew.
Okay.
It's just enough's enough already.
Well, look, I mean, again, we had a lot of banter after the match, where Sandro very aggressively ran to the ref and didn't do anything, right? He just ran up and started ranting and got that direct red, and got sent off ultimately, which I honestly didn't like. I didn't think it was a direct red, and then therefore in my eyes didn't really warrant the suspension. But again, right? Like I understand where it comes from, but you can't. It's hard to, when you see things like that. It's hard to not have the conversation about preferential treatment for some of these players. And I think for as long as I can remember, that has always been a thing in this league, right? Where the superstars of the league sort of have a cloak of immunity, if you will, right? And that goes back.
And there's still
from the beginning of of the league.
Yeah.
And they're still complaining about the rule that Messi got suspended for. It's a rule, guys. Get over it. It's been in place. He's not the first person to get suspended. He's not going to be the last one to get suspended for it.
Look, I don't know how upset he was. All the articles that were out there saying Messi's very upset. And I've said this to you guys.
He's drinking on the side. He's drinking in the suite. Yeah, he's really upset.
Yeah, I've said this to you guys. Messi in my eyes is the best player to have ever lived, at least that I'll ever see. Right? I can't speak to the Pelés of the world. I didn't get to watch him play. I wasn't alive then, right? But
are you saying I'm old?
But it's hard to again. It's hard to argue that there's some preferential treatment out there.
Yeah,
again, I didn't see what the big. First of all, I mean, again, we can go down this rabbit hole about the All-Star game to begin with. As a matter of principle, I don't. I understand why the league does it. I don't think it has much appeal. And again, like, he didn't play, and that was the rule. He got suspended. If it had been anybody else, they would have gotten suspended and no one would have cared, right? But I think that's always it, right? Like, Messi's always going to be the story. And so anything that he does or doesn't do, for that matter, is always going to, it's going to make headlines. But this is what we talked about when the rumblings began about him coming into the league and whatnot. And we all said this. It's be careful what you wish for, because yes, Messi does obviously bring lots of eyes to the league that wouldn't be there if he wasn't here. But this is all a byproduct of it as well. Like, all of these things that we're seeing, is going to happen, right? So
he could have handled it so much easier. He could have just said, "Hey, fellas, withdrawing his name from a long time ago. Listen, it's a game crunch. I'm not feeling. I don't want to go to Austin, Texas. My priority is the club." Yeah, I get it. You're the featured attraction. You should know this. But don't have Mascherano going around saying, "Well, speak to him. We'll know how he is, how he feels, and he's tired." Come on.
Well, and you know what?
Sugarcoat it.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing on that, and it's what ultimately probably frustrated me the most was Mascherano getting on the microphone, right? Which he has the platform as a head coach to
So does
speak his mind, but then starts the conspiracy theories about, well, if the game had been on the road, would the league have suspended him? And I guess we'll never know that, right? But again, like I mean, it clearly speaks to Mark's point. The butt kissing that happens, in my opinion, from, and I know that he's the coach and that's his guy, right, on his team, so he's gonna step up for him. But in that situation, I'm like, dude, like clearly you're biased. Like you don't like just shut up. Like let's not even have that conversation.
But getting back to Mark's thing, when about Suarez pushing Sandro, um, my problem with this, where is our team defending Sandro? Not one guy moved.
No, that was when we talked about that, and
Not one person walked up, grabbed him, which isn't it? Yeah, it is soccer. It's not that physical. Fellas, anybody lays a hand on my coach or another player in the wrong, done them dirty, there's gonna be somebody making sure that guy gets talked to, one way or the other, and it's not gonna be fun.
Yeah, I mean, I totally see that. I don't disagree. Again, you could argue the other side of the coin too, where in a situation like that, and again, we don't know what happens behind closed doors, right? But maybe Sandro has said, you know what, when things get heated, right? Like don't play into it, right? Like don't give in. Like I can't afford to lose one of you to a card or something like that. So again, it's all conjecture, but
well, that right there is one of the other problems. You can't expect these guys to be disciplined, to stay within themselves when you chased after the referee.
yeah.
It's like, and I think it was this year that Carballo got the yellow and then the subsequent second yellow and got red carded off.
Yeah,
I think that was during the Nashville game.
Yeah.
I had a couple of buddies. I had gotten upgraded to midfield, and we're sitting watching it. Like he kicks the ball away, so the ref says, "Hey, guess what? It's not supposed to happen." Gets the yellow. He follows the referee across the field. The four of us, including my son, oh no, why is he chasing him? Why? It's like, so as a coach, you have to set the example,
Right.
and it's been tough because Sandro's been given the fourth official all kinds of hell over the last few weeks. And I think the referees are starting to tune him out. And I think there's a possibility. You want to talk about conspiracy theories. But I think because of what's happened, because he vocally came out and commented about the referees, they may not want to give him the benefit of the doubt. They may not be giving us much of a look when it comes to, well, let's see, which way is this going to go? And things just don't go our way. I mean, I don't even remember there was the one foul that took place at midfield, and it was clear that it was the Chicago player that ran into our player, yet he calls the foul against us. And I don't remember, it was just going through the course of it, I didn't remember who it was. But he calls advantage. And I'm like, what advantage? The foul was against us. You're calling against them? It made no sense to me, like at least 4 or 5 different times. Just scratching my head going, is he watching the same game we're watching? And he's right there. He's seeing it closer than we are. And he's completely missing it. So,
I mean,
you don't know.
I don't want to get on my officiating soapbox here, but I guess I will for a couple of seconds. But
sure.
I've always argued, right? In general, I think this is across all sports, not just in soccer, but I find that it's very difficult to hold officials accountable, right? Because I think just like players, they have good games, they have bad games. They're human beings. I totally get it, right? Like no one's perfect, but again, like we make you make coaches and players sit in front of the press and answer questions about their performance and about their game. I don't know why we don't hold officials to that sort of a standard, right? Where they should have to, sort of talk about justify decisions that they make, because more often than not, and I find this to be particularly so in Major League Soccer, the officiating is inconsistent at best. I think out of and granted, I don't watch. I know I don't watch hockey on the regular. That's one sport that I would eliminate from my sort of perspective, right? But from watching many of the major sports, the NFL, the NBA, Major League Baseball, you could again, Major League Baseball is probably right up there in terms of the inconsistencies, right, with the strike zone in particular and things like that. But
And that's where they're getting.
again, like why don't we have officials speak to the things that happen during the game that we question and then we never hear about again?
If that would happen, I think would also eliminate. You'll definitely get some feedback. You can just say a statement. Hey, I saw this. Doesn't have to answer the question. Hey, what's your report on the end of the game? And have the refs report every game published. This is what happened in this call. This is what we saw in this call. This is what we went with. Publish it. Show it to everybody, not just behind the scenes. This guy's not going to get another playoff game if he's suspended. But what? What did he do wrong? We want to know. What's going on? Why isn't this guy getting things? Why is this guy getting another one? Why is this guy still being kept on when he's graded poorly? If you want clarity, do it for everything. That's what everybody says makes the game easier. You want to make it easier for everybody to understand and bring better viewership, better understanding to the game. Have it clarity, pure clarity. Let everybody know what's going on. This is why this referee is not being used again.
Well, I think that in the NFL they get rated, and it's only the top-rated officials that end up getting the opportunity to officiate during the playoffs. Now, I'm pretty sure that the hockey's the same way. There's been issues like Carlos said with all officiating across all sports, and yeah, they have their moments, but I think Sandro was even asking that when he went off on his little tirade during his post game, and he said, as a coach, I'm held accountable for my job for what I do. The players, you hold them accountable. Why is it that we don't hold referees accountable? Well, because we all know that in some circles of the football world, referees are sometimes escorted out of the arena or stadium under security. And there's a reason, because fans tend to get a little out of control sometimes. But listen, I don't see that. We don't have that issue here. But our referees aren't even remotely questioned. We may complain about it, but the league doesn't seem to care at all in that regard, because some of our referees have made some blatant mistakes over the years, and there's nothing you can do after the fact. Obviously, that's the other side of the coin.
Right.
Yeah, even if you completely blew a call, you can't go back and say, "Oh, well, you can't fix it. It's too late." But that's part of that whole argument of, well, part of why we have VAR is so that the referees can get the call right. But the way that handballs are called or not called, it's so subjective. It's the manner in which he's looking at it. I mean, is he thinking intent when he's looking at this, or is he just looking at what he sees on the screen? Yeah, it's a tough call, even for the referees. I'll grant them that I wouldn't want to do their job. It's tough.
Especially in this day and age where you see how the parents react. That's what there's a referee shortage in youth games. How could you sit there and take this when your parent goes nuclear on you, and you're just doing this to make sure the kids can play? So
It's rough. It's like I said. So I don't know what's going to happen. I think like we've said, the thing I'm hoping is that we come out of League's Cup without any injuries.
Yep.
We see a couple of these kids really show that they have what it takes to step up, and we start seeing a couple of them getting some minutes with the first team, and we'll see where we're at on August 10th, because it's our only Sunday night game, I believe.
we get Charlotte game in Charlotte too.
That's a Sunday.
That's a Sunday in Charlotte.
Yeah. But Sunday here was nice. You know, like I just it's been tough, and I'm going to be joining the group of non-season ticket holders next year. So it's tough. It's you don't want to spend your time going to see a team that's just falling apart. So we'll have to wait and see.
For sure. And that's I don't know that that's the best place to end the show, but that's sort of where we are, right? I think that really just sort of really shows that it's kind of where we are right now again, and sort of this limbo and gray space of the season with a lot of things happening, right, in terms of activity with Leagues Cup, with the Open Cup, the rest of the season, and so on and so forth. But time will ultimately tell. Again, Leagues Cup kicks off on Thursday for the Red Bulls, where they'll play Chivas at Red Bull Arena, and then of course they will return to league action, as I said, on August 10th. Again, a reminder that the podcast. I say we, but the guys won't be back on the pod.
You're part of the we.
I am part of the we, but not on the regular anymore, unless Gary decides to go on vacation again. In which case, then I'm sure I'll be back, and just to take advantage of the opportunity to blame Gary, but we also love Gary. So the pod will be back after the Real Salt Lake game when they come back to league action. So you'll catch the guys then. I think by then the model will be back from Puerto Rico. He's hanging out with Bad Bunny.
Miguel,
I don't know what he's doing. He's doing what Miguel does, and
Miguel's focusing on forcing the league to go to a winter spring season.
Yes.
And
there you go. Which apparently,
and he's coordinating with Garber as we speak.
He's succeeding because it looks like that's going to happen down the line. So, anyway, guys, this as always is fun. It's great to be back in the seat. It is like riding a bike. And so it was great. I always have a blast. I wish, again, it could have been under better circumstances, given the results of the weekend, but nonetheless, here we are. My friends.
I, for one, would like to say it was nice having you back.
Oh, thank you.
We definitely have missed you in the rotation. So don't be a stranger.
I won't. As a matter of fact, I'm pretty sure I have the next thread. The Salt Lake game, I think, is me on the thread, if I remember correctly.
There is no thread for during the cast.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, the Leagues Cup, that'll be like an open thread. Gary always sets it up, and everyone, it's a free for all. You can go in there and banter and
enjoy,
crap on whoever's not playing well.
Post your gifts because we don't care.
Yeah, exactly. Right, you don't have to worry about Gary policing gifts in the thread. None of that. Because it's again, just an open thing. But guys, this is great. To our folks listening and watching at home, thank you all if you're listening after the fact on Spotify. We appreciate you all very much. And yeah, stay tuned for the next episode in the next couple of weeks. And until next time, folks, have a good one.